very needed field right now. It was, it is, it will be. And my English is far from perfection. You will hear a beautiful accent, you will hear beautiful spelling mistakes, but because most of you are working with children, I know you are very patient and very indulgent with it. So I feel I am in good hands. So we know what we want to prevent. It's sexual abuse. This is a very comprehensive definition of sexual abuse. It's a very, very complex issue. You can find many different definitions of it. And also we cannot forget that there can be sexual abuse also between two minors, where a teenager, for example, is abusing a 7 or 8 years old, and the problem is always a problem of differences in shape, in knowledges, in power. And doing prevention work, you can move in two different perspectives and directions. You can do prevention and focusing on risk factors, intervening before something bad happens, but also you can do a lot of promotion work, and you can be focusing on protective factors, and your goal in this perspective is going to be strengthening and improving health profiles among target population. When we do prevention and promotion work, we really have a whole array, a whole complete set of different strategies, and our prevention and promotion goals are the outcomes of a combination of strategies. We can provide information. For example, in this field, it's very important that communities know what child sexual abuse is, how underestimated is its prevalence and incident rates in communities. We need to build skill. For example, we need children to know how to prevent getting into every situation, how important is it to report to an adult they trust, but we also need parents and educators to be very skilled and competent in providing children with the sex education they need. And we need to provide many different resources. For example, hotlines, trained, staffed people, books to do sex education, video to do sex education inside the families and the school. We have many different target audiences if we do primary prevention education, starting with children already abused, because if we treat them and they have been treated, they are children who really can enjoy a lot the messages coming from primary prevention intervention. It's very therapeutic for them. It gives them a lot of resilience after what they have been going through. But of course, in primary prevention, we have a universal goal. We want to reach 100% of children who are not abused, and we want them to grow up and never being abused. Of course, we have a target in the adult world. We must reach family, school, sport association, churches, and all places and situations where children abuse and not abuse live and go. And then we have, as a target audience, abusers and potential abusers. If we reach them and we make them aware that they need treatment and they need to get into a recovery program, we will be stopping any further abuse on their behalf. Checking out what happened in primary prevention strategies and intervention, we should say that beginning with the 70s last century, there was a first wave in prevention based on education, intervention, targeting children in schools, parents, and their teachers, so to make them aware and skilled to prevent the phenomenon. And then we had a second wave in prevention. The Stop It Now model is the milestone for this second wave. The target is of this second wave was working with abuser, and helping them realize how their abusive behavior damages the victims and making them becoming partners in prevention so that we can be able to talk to potential abusers and to stop them. The message from Stopping Now are very clear. The model is very well known, and you have been hearing a lot about it also in this conference. Very clear target, very clear messages. Try to get help, and you need help. Or if you live close to somebody you think needs help, you can help him or her, and they can stop what they're doing. And the words from a recovering offender, I've only recently begun breaking down walls and layers of defenses, seeing myself for who I am, and empathizing for all those I've heard. This is very clear that if we work well with this target audience, we can reach very, very important goals. And if you want to have a view of how we can empathize with abusers, that is very important in our field. You can see this beautiful movie, The Woodsman, dealing with an abuser in recovery. Very, very interesting. And I believe this message from Wayne Bowers is very clear. I'm always asked how many victims I've abused, but isn't it as important for me to say how many I've saved by getting rehabilitated? And I won't be talking anymore about prevention intervention with abusers, because I want you to focus on what we can do with children, tweens, and teens. That's the focus of my presentation today. And we have a lot to do. We can reach preventive goals, helping children survive a situation without being abused, teaching preventive skills to stop and report an abuse or an attempted one. But we also have very, very important promotion goals, providing kids with the sex education they need, empowering kids and families to talk about sex and sex-related complex and a risk situation. Don't forget that silence is a major risk factor for child sexual abuse all over the world. In working with children, we built our prevention strategies on a model of abuse as it traditionally was. It has changed a lot. It was something perpetrated on the child by an older individual the child trusts or who is having power over the child. The child does know exactly what is happening, feels ashamed, cannot ask for help, keeps silent, gets groomed, gets excited, but is very, very confused. And there is a combination of seduction and power dynamics implied in this kind of abuse. And we decided that the prevention needed for this kind of abuse was that children needed to be informed and skilled to protect themselves in case somebody is making them feel uncomfortable and forcing them to do something they do not like and is not appropriate for them. So we had many different educational programs going all over the world. You just recognize some of the slogan or logo for this program. There was a wide variety of them, very different in formats, in methodologies, and there were some evaluation studies going on, not a lot. This is a field where we don't have evaluation clear results, and there were many different pros and cons going around this kind of programs. A huge debate was in the literature around this kind of prevention approach, and some studies were done to assess if this kind of program raise anxiety in children. Must children be considered responsible for their safety, or is it an adult's issue? Are children more at risk with an abuser if they learn to say no, to stop it, and go away to report it to somebody else? Very controversial issue, many thousands of words written around them, and I believe we should consider the results of, I think, the best meta-analysis that was done on primary prevention, education intervention. It was done by David Finkler, and he stated that the weight of currently available evidence shows that it's worth providing children with high-quality prevention education programs. He gave some of the outcomes he realized he got from the meta-analysis. But I think these statements are very important. School-based prevention education programs have additional important objectives besides those of preventive victimization, including promoting the reporting of victimization, reducing the stigma and self-blame that victimized children feel, and educating parents, teachers, and other community members about the problem. There is evidence that they accomplish some of these goals. I've been in this field for more than 15 years, and I'm pretty sure that everybody doing primary prevention knows that these are very positive side effects of our intervention when we do primary prevention. And this is very important because what it was writing at the end of the meta-analysis is that no alternative prevention strategy has as much positive evidence in its favor as prevention education. It would be a mistake to abandon a strategy that has a tentative but inconclusive evaluation record, including some positive results for other strategies that have little or no empirical evidence in their favor yet, however appealing they may sound in theory. So it's very clear what he wanted us to know, and I believe mostly the same conclusion come from a Cochrane review where evaluated different studies reporting the outcomes of primary prevention with children, and the review told that there are significant improvements in knowledge measure and protective behaviors among children participating into primary prevention. Now, I want you to check this document if you're coming back to your community or to your country and you want to have a perfect rationale to start a primary prevention program for child sexual abuse targeting children. This document is what you need. It's the National Sexuality Education Standards. They were published last year in the United States, and they contain the core contents and skills needed by all children, tweens and teens between 4 years old and 17 years old. And this document covers 7 topics chosen as the minimum essential content and skill for K-12 sexuality education. And what I want you to check is number 6 and number 7 area of content, because number 6 is dealing with educational goals in the area of promoting healthy relationships, perfectly overlapping with the contents of David Wolf's keynote speech we had on Monday. And very, very fundamental area for kids growing up in this complex world right now. And content area number 7, personal safety, emphasizes the need for a growing awareness, creation and maintenance of safe environments for all students. And child sexual abuse prevention has a special focus among the educational goals in this document. So this document is a perfect EBP guideline document building the rationale for you to start a primary prevention program if you don't have any in your community or in your country. And now I want you to move to a very new field in child sexual abuse primary prevention. There is so much going on. We are really running after what's going on in the world of our children, our students, and we have new priorities. We have to create new curricula, new approaches, and I want you just to check out this video. Where is Klaus?
Schmidt, Peters, Jansen, Hermanns. Is your son home?
Yes, he's up in his room. Come in. Hi, is Classy here?
Yeah, upstairs.
Well then, we'll go up and try out some kinky stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Cool location.
Where's close?
There.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Is this little Anna? You've got a nice bunny. Come on, I'll show you a real bunny.
In real life, you would protect your children. So why not protect them on the internet? ClickSafe.de.
Okay, I believe this is a perfect video giving us the new priorities for doing primary prevention in this field. We have two targets here. We have the child in the room exposed to tons of materials who are very charged with sex and violence, and we should consider that it might be they don't have the emotional competence and skills to manage the impact of all these materials. But we have another prevention target who are parents, because they are completely unaware of the prevention educational needs of their kids. They really don't know what's going on, what's necessary to be done. They are really elementary, like elementary school children getting into their first class. They need the basic, and it's a target of tremendous importance for all of us. Just read the newspaper today. Today is the day Grand Theft Auto is going out, the new edition of this video game, which is very much charged with violence and sex. They expect to sell some million copies of Grand Theft Auto in the first week of its coming out all over the world. And in considering this new way of, in these new typologies of interaction with ICTs massively present in everyday life of our kids, we have a new form of child sexual abuse, because we have the minor who actively surfs and explores the web looking for older people and adults willing to keep in touch with him, her, in a sexual way. With these older persons, the minor chats, explores sexuality, often exposes him or herself through the webcam. And exploring sexual curiosity is absolutely healthy when you are 12, 13, 14, 15. It's of basic importance for your sexual development, but the way you are doing that can be very dangerous for you and can expose you to a very augmented risk to be abused. And we know that sometimes the two meet together in real life for a sexual encounter. And we are finding a new kind of victim under this perspective, because sometimes we have a minor who knows exactly what is happening. It was reported in many different workshops, also in this conference, who does not feel ashamed in getting sexually involved with somebody who's 20 or 30 years older than he or she is. And paradoxically, he is the one asking the abuser to keep in touch with him and to be sexually involved with him. What kind of prevention is needed in this case if you have a victim who does not perceive himself or herself as a victim? Just a case study. This is an article, a journal article who came out in Italy. The news here is that a famous 33-year-old actor seduces a 13-year-old girl met online through Facebook. So it's like a classical case of child sexual abuse. But then we discovered that the girl was very active. She was the one starting the whole thing. And read the end of the article. During the confrontation with the judge in charge of this case, the 13-year-old girl has taken the part of the actor, whom she says has been falling in love with, and reported plenty of lies to defend the man who is her abuser, but she thinks is her very her very first love. So she believes herself as being the victim of the adults who are trying to protect her. And it's a very completely different position from the starting point when we have started to rationalize what child sexual abuse is and how we can prevent it. And sex posting, sexting, which is a new phenomenon through which children and teens post images of themselves naked or acting sexually on a voluntary basis, really overlaps with this kind of situation.
Hey, Sarah.
Oh my gosh, he's so cute. How do you know him?
Oh, Donovan, do it like I taught you. Love the new tattoo, Sarah. Let's go!
Dude, that's Sarah. The girl in the pink shirt. That's the girl I was telling you about.
Oh, that's Sarah?
Theater 2 on your left. Hey, Sarah. What color underwear today?
Hey, Sarah. So when are you going to post something new?
Anything you post online, anyone can see. Family, friends,
See you later, Sarah.
even not so friendly people. Think before you post.
Okay, sexting is really posing new challenges for us doing primary prevention in this field. And the key points are that we have more and more children and teens using the website to explore their sexual curiosity, to get excited, and to indulge in sexual fantasies. More and more children and teens getting in touch with older people through internet to be actively involved in sexual conversation, online and offline activities on a self-voluntary basis. And we have a social cultural context contributing to decreasing the alert and awareness toward sexual messages targeting young people that are dangerous and confusing at the same time. So the key questions here for us doing prevention is, are ICTs and minor web habits a new risk factor for a new way to sexually abuse children? Can abuser take advantage of minor healthy sexual curiosity and excitement through internet to abuse them? Can a minor be reinforced by internet to start a career as abusers of other minors? And so if these are the questions, what can we do? And what education is mostly needed among digital natives? I believe it might be the first conclusion and the take-home message that right now we really have a priority in targeting educators, parents, and all the adults world. And we need to combine two different kind of primary prevention education targeting adults, because they must become adults who are very media savvy and technology aware. And this is the area of media education. We need them, we need it for parents, and at the same time, we are in need of education and intervention, allowing adults to become capable to provide kids with the sex education they need to be able to channel their sexual curiosity and excitement into a path that is age developmentally appropriate and no risk. Just to give you an example, in combining two different topics that were in this conference, we need to educate fathers to become the best sex educator for their male children. And right now we need all fathers to talk about pornography with their kids when they are 10, 11, and 12 years old. If they don't do that, males are getting into massive amounts of pornography without any kind of frame by the person they trust the most. And are they, what we know very, very quickly, you can confront David Finkel's research. He has produced a massive amount of data and is really enlightening the path to primary prevention and to intervention in this very difficult field. And if you just see the numbers in the increase in arrest for web-related child sexual abuse cases in the United States, just over a 5-year period between 2001 and 2006, it was more than doubled. At the same time, in the same time, child sexual abuse in real life has declined substantially. So while sexual abuse in real life is declining, web-related child sexual abuse is increasing massively. And we know online abusers are quite similar to the world of offline abuser, just using mostly the same grooming techniques and seduction and creating a false intimacy. It's a basic point of connecting with a child through the web. They are not targeting young children or strangers to victims. They are not strangers to victims. They are not violent abductors and stalkers. And mostly of them are targeting adolescents and tweens, preteens, using romance and seduction. And sometimes they are known to use in person. And another very important information coming from David Finkelor data, if you check the proportion of offenders in the range age of young adults between 18 and 25, you realize that that percentage has almost doubled over a 5-year period. And here we have the problem. Are we creating a new generation of sex abusers who are forging their abusive attitude through the web? I believe it's very important that we go through what I call the web-related cycle conducting to child sexual fantasies. Kids use a lot the web to indulge in child sexual fantasy, and they look for materials, sex materials on the web. The web offers plenty of it and satisfies the minor's curiosity. The minor masturbates when exploring these materials, and the minor uses the materials to energize and nurture his sexual fantasies when masturbating. And orgasm when masturbating reinforces powerfully the sexual fantasies and normalizes cognitively their contents and imagined action. And cognitive normalization makes possible imagine to transform fantasies into action. This is a basic rule we know from the field of sexology. And what if the sexual materials you are using for your sexual fantasies is very, very violent? What if you learn through that materials to normalize sex, violence in your sexual relationship? And what if the whole cycle is generated through pedopornographic materials found on the web or through web-based sexual encounters with other minors? So this is really an area of danger that we have to look very carefully for creating new prevention approaches and strategies. And I want you also to give you a contribution from neurosciences. Neurosciences gave us many ways to consider the prevention needs among preteens and teens in this field for many different areas of behavior. We now have discovered what happens to the human brain during childhood and adolescence, and we now understand why, especially in the years between 11 and 17, young people indulge in heightened risk-taking, and how we can make prevention work effectively for minors and teens. The problem here is that the child's and adolescent's brain finds very difficult to integrate messages coming from its limbic areas, the emotional brain, that is very sensitive to social and emotional stimuli, such as dealing with sexuality, excitement, fear, arousal, all factors implied in situations like sexual abuse or using pornography on the web, with those coming from the prefrontal cortex, It's the area of the brain that we have beside our forehead. So when we are really in a trouble, we do something like that, we want to stimulate our prefrontal cortex. And in this area, most of the cognitive processes are happening, aiming at decision-making, problem-solving, and critical thinking, that are skills needed to be able to assess risk and to prevent it. So the dilemma here is that your emotional brain, your limbic area, is very much developed, while your prefrontal cortex brain is not so much developed. So you feel a lot when you are 12, 13, and 14, but you don't have the cognitive skill to manage all those feelings who are coming into you. And often among minors, the emotional brain takes control of the situation, leaving the individual unable to act with the mediation and regulation role played by the PFC cognitive processes. So here is what's happening if you have sexual situation with sexual implication. You are controlled by your emotional brain, and if you have not been trained to use the skill of your PFC part of the brain, you are really controlled by emotion and feelings, and it might be you do the wrong things. If you think about the sexting video we have been looking at, that girl posted her sexual charge images just because it was exciting. She was having very positive feelings on doing it, and then in real life she was confronted with consequences coming from it, and the PFC started to work inside herself, and she realized how big the problem was, and that problem she had herself created because of her limbic area, we should say that. So and another point I want to make with you is that most of us adults are right now really controlled by their limbic area, not working a lot with the PFC part of the brain. We are very, very indulgent with many different messages getting to our kids in our homes. And just 2 weeks ago, the Washington Post ran a controversial opinion piece about the unintended consequences of laws addressing sex between teachers and students. And this is a message by the author. I don't believe that all sexual conduct between underage students and teachers should necessarily be classified as rape. And I believe that in absence of extenuating circumstances, consensual sexual activity between teacher and student should not be criminalized. I'm skipping over because I just want you to be quite clear that our kids are living in a paradoxical world where the official curriculum based on the prevention we provide to them gives some kind of messages, and then there is an unofficial hidden curriculum giving the same opposite messages and really changing the whole building of meanings that children and teenagers are integrating into the idea of sexuality. And if our official curriculum does not offer anything to them, the only operative educational curriculum is the unofficial one, which is quite charged. It doesn't go. Oh, I'm sorry, I was. Okay, it offers plenty of different, and there is an incredible glamorization of the connection, for example, between sex and violence. This is all taken from mainstream culture. The final message is that we really need right now to create a new approach based on what the WHO calls the life skill-based educational model. It's a model that's used for all kinds of at-risk behaviors. It's very useful for tobacco prevention, drug prevention, alcohol prevention. And if you just check this pyramid, you will see that we have to create curricula whose activities are really getting into many different skilling areas: decision-making, critical thinking, goal setting, and this is a very complex image, but every word in this image must be a word sustaining some educational activities that we have to do with kids and parents right now to prevent child sexual abuse. We need to get practicing in this kind of methodologies, and we have to include this methodology into our curriculum. Just check the conclusion of the Denver Thinking Space that are available, and I was very proud to be part of it. They are offering you many different directions and perspectives and sustaining you in creating the general framework to start this new way of working into the prevention field. And now think of what's going on in your country or in your community. Are you able to write something inside every box in this figure? It's very, very important that you have. And if you check it out in a good way, what I ensure is that primary prevention is the most underestimated and underdone area of prevention work all over the world. So there is so much work to do, and the challenge is just only at its beginning. Don't feel overwhelmed and do never give up. This is a world of hyperstimulation, and hyperstimulation goes into the life of our kids, but we are losing connection. And we really need to create a balance between stimulation and connection. That's the only way we can really help our kids to grow up with their proper rights to have a beautiful life and integrate sexuality in their project of happiness. Thank you very much.